We're so pleased to have her here. Would you please welcome to the stage Lucy Thomas?
Well, this morning I woke up in the dark. I got up and I painted my face medium beige. That's Revlon's favorite color, apparently. I drove to the airport and I hitched a ride on a giant mechanical bird to be here. I've come a long way for this 15-minute presentation, and now that I'm standing in front of such an impressive audience, it's really tempting to give you guys a glossy view of my life and the comfortable choices I've made to be here. But if I'm really honest with you guys, none of the choices that have truly grown me as a person felt comfortable at the time. They all required me to stretch. And today's about leadership. My view is that leadership is about exactly that. We got to stretch. It's about extending ourselves for the benefit of others. And I know that can seem really scary. Getting started can feel like a massive risk. So today, I hope to demonstrate the value of taking those courageous risks, those leaps for others, by taking exactly that kind of leap for you guys right now. So as a little kid, I spent a lot of time imagining, actually believing that I was an elderly woman called Mrs. Wing. This might seem like it's a bit out of left field, but just roll with me. When I was Mrs. Wing, I wore a set of mismatching op shop clothes, and I fake smoked a pipe, which was really just the plastic scoop from our laundry detergent bucket. This might sound a little bit weird, but I did have these two other friends that could also see Mrs. Wing. Their names were Darkle and Duffafi. The only problem was that I was the only one who could see them. Yeah, when Mrs. Wing died, may she rest in peace, I developed a new obsession with becoming a detective. So I rocked up at school and I announced that I was changing my name to Gumshoe. Yeah, no one could remember my name, so they called me Gumnut and Gumleaf and Gumboot. I mean, what 8-year-old girl goes by the name Gumboot? I suppose I was an eccentric kid, and so it's probably no surprise to you guys that I had this hunger for books as well and for reading. Peter Pan, Where the Wild Things Are, Alice in Wonderland. Alice was always a pretty special one to me. I mean, this kid, she's chilling out, she sees this rabbit wearing a waistcoat with a pocket watch, and she's like, I'm going to follow that guy. She follows him down a rabbit hole, and she winds up in this world of total absurdity, where she somehow finds more meaning in her own life. I really relate to that story. But I think as we grow older, we become less courageous, and it gets harder to be like Alice. Now, you guys are probably like, why is she telling us this? Well, to me, Follow the White Rabbit is a reminder of the true depth of possibility in this universe. It's about taking a risk to find a better world. I'm not talking about those reckless risks that we capture on our iPhones and upload to social media with the hashtag YOLO. Nah. I'm talking about those courageous risks, the leaps we make for others. They're extensions of who we are, our values. And it all starts with a leap. So here goes. When my sister and I started Project Rockit, we were relatively fresh out of high school ourselves. Quite simply, we wanted to build spaces where all young people have access to respect, acceptance, creative expression, and real social leadership, regardless of their popularity or grades or sexuality or cultural background. We wanted to create opportunities for people to be themselves, and bullying robs people of those opportunities, so we targeted bullying. At the time, back then, having never been bullied myself, I really wanted to reach the majority of people like me in high school who see bullying happen but don't know what to do. I wanted to empower them to stand up. I figured that often all it takes is one person standing up and others will do the same. Back then, my sister and I had no great ambition to set up an organisation or launch our careers or get any kind of recognition. To be honest, we didn't think that far into the future. We just got started. Project Rockit exists because my sister and I, we made like Alice. We followed the White Rabbit. We took a courageous, values-driven leap into the unknown with no idea about how we might get out again. I suppose we were like you guys. At that time, we had no kids to feed, no savings to waste. We really only had our pride to lose. I was personally driven by imagination, courage, and love, which remain my top 3 values to this very day. And in this instance, I could not be happier with how living those values has turned out. Now I'm lucky enough to be part of an amazing team at Project Rockit who inspire and challenge me every day, who are like family to me. And together, with their help, we've now reached hundreds and thousands of young people all around the country, and Project Rockit's taken me all over the world. But best of all, I can really see its impact. What we do at Project Rockit isn't a speech like this, and it's not a theatre performance, it's not a lecture or a cry fest. We run credible, interactive workshops that empower young people with strategies they'd actually use. It's positive and it's real talk, and it's the most amazing thing I've ever been part of in my entire life. It has taken volumes of grit and uncertainty and sacrifice, but even when I've looked around me at my friends who've had stable jobs and secure plans and structure in their lives, I wouldn't have it any other way. And now, after battling for years to push our beloved Project Rockit forward, we've just had this huge cash money injection from Telstra that will really allow us to take the whole movement to a new level, launch a whole online anti-bullying community, build an app, and basically get the program out to every corner of the country. If you're keen, talk to your teachers about how you can get Project Rockit in your school. But promotions aside, when I think about my job and the opportunity I have to connect with amazing people like you guys, it's honestly impossible to put my gratitude into words. So for the best part, taking courageous risks has only pushed me forward straightforwardly. But more recently, the same mantra, follow the white rabbit, it did not turn out so favourably. I dove headfirst down a deep, dark rabbit hole into some seriously messed up stuff. And I barely made it out again. Now, having dedicated the past 8 years of my life to bullying, I can finally say that I do know what it's like to be bullied. It all started with someone who I dated not so long ago. I remember when we began hanging out, you guys are totally going to know what I mean. You know when you really like someone and you get a text message from them, and the minute you get the text message, you hear that sound and you get this buzz of adrenaline, and you're like, right? I think that's the universal sign that you know you're into someone. And it was like that. It was a surprising connection at first, because our families and social circles were poles apart, and we each came from different stages and walks of life. But for some reason, we just clicked. It was super cool. I mean, it did feel like I was taking a risk, because when you open your heart to anyone, there's always a risk. There's the risk you might get hurt. But I figured, follow the white rabbit, right? A courageous, values-driven leap. Before we took that leap, we did talk about the things that made us different, but we just kind of agreed that we didn't care about other people's judgments. We were both adults, and one of the perks of adulthood is that you get to make your own choices, right? So I guess we chose each other. Now, a couple of months in, it became that time when it was like time to make things public and, explain to our families that we'd been seeing each other. Except this wasn't your regular, thing that you do where you're like, hey, Mum, I got a new boyfriend, but when he comes over, please don't embarrass me or I will kill you. No, it wasn't like that. It was different, because she was a girl. She probably still is. And I'm a girl too. Gee, if you don't know, now you know. And that wasn't a big deal for me, and it's still not. I've never really felt like I needed to label the people I've dated by their gender, or their ethnicity, or religion, or mine for that matter. Yeah. Anyway, from the moment she told her family, all of those judgments that previously we'd agreed didn't matter suddenly did. Yeah, I received this message from her Facebook account, abruptly ending all communication between us. It said some really gross stuff as well. That was the complete opposite to anything I've ever heard before. And because it was so different to what she'd said, I didn't believe she'd written it. I started freaking out and worrying who'd written this and what she was going to do next, to me and to myself, herself. Yeah, but what went down in the months to follow, I could never have expected. With no exaggeration, her family straight up persecuted me. Malicious lies, threats, homophobic complaints that implicated every area of my life. My work, my education, my home, my family, people I'd previously dated, even my beloved Project Rockit team. I won't give any airtime to the allegations that they made because they were disgusting and simply untrue, but I'm sure you guys can imagine. There were some really scary physical threats as well. I became terrified of these people, some of whom I've still never even met. I want to reassure you guys that I really am okay, but back then I barely survived. Her tall stories became these towering mirrors through which I began to see myself as dirty, disgusting, worthless. Every single one of her allegations and attacks, they got nowhere. They failed colossally because they were built on a foundation of lies and prejudice. And I really believe that this country and humanity is moving further and further towards eliminating those views. But at the time, having someone I care about so much say such horrible things about me, it was really soul-destroying. Excuse me. Yeah, I guess I felt like I was starting to disintegrate. My wonderland world of imagination, courage, love, follow the white rabbit, it just wasn't big enough at that point to accommodate that level of cruelty. But here's the amazing part. When everything else around me was pitch black, Project Rockit became the flashlight that lit my path forward. It was amazing. After every sleepless, tormented night, I would get up and go to school and reconnect with my purpose on this planet. When I stood in front of an audience like this and really looked into their eyes, I felt a greater connection than I've ever felt before in my entire life. I started to realize that Project Rockit is a manifestation of everything I am. And when I lost sight of myself, Project Rockit was there to remind me. I didn't need to be bullied to know that I'm against it. I didn't need to be accused to know I'm not a pervert. And I didn't need to have my character attacked to know who I really am. And I never would have chosen this experience, but I can say that given that it happened, I'm very grateful because I now know exactly what it's like to be bullied because of who you are. I've survived hatred, and I've seen the crippling fear at the core of those who inflict it. Being bullied does not mean there's anything wrong with you, because it's our actions that define us, not what other people do to us or say about us. Imagination, courage, love, follow the white rabbit, all of the things that made me vulnerable to this difficult piece of learning are exactly why I started Project Rockit in the first place. Being bullied affirmed the path that I chose. It made me like who I am a little bit more. Now, I still care about her, and I always will, but I can't change her world. I can only change mine. And now I'm more driven than ever to tackle bullying, hate, and prejudice, no matter how it's disguised. I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you don't take those courageous, mighty risks, horrible things might happen to you anyway. But really amazing achievements in your life will not happen without your courage. I believe that it's such a true shame that so many people make comfortable choices because they're afraid of failure, when failure is just the label we give to things that don't turn out the way we planned. I mean, I hope my experience also shows that you've got to be careful whose hand you're holding when you're diving down that rabbit hole. We don't want to put ourselves in harm's way. But even if the learning is painful, when our actions are driven by our values, we'll never regret them, we'll only learn from them. The way that I see it, you don't have to change who you are to be a leader, but you do have to have the courage to be who you are. It's kind of ridiculous to think you could be anyone else. You can't be more or less than yourself, and nor should you ever have to be. The most amazing, significant, and enduring creations in this world began with regular people like you and me. We just got to get started. So earlier today, I got up in the dark. I painted my whole face medium beige. I hitched a ride on a giant mechanical bird to be here. I came here for you. And I want you to hear my true sincerity when I say this from the bottom of my heart. I hope you guys have the most wonderful adventures out there. Never again in your lives will you have so much to gain, so much to learn, and so much to give. So get started. Thank you.